Welcome to another huge edition of Hong Kong horse racing. Jason Richardson, Clint Hutchison, and the Hall of Famer in RS Dye. Lots to talk about. Hutchbuster, great week last week. Well done to you. And lots to talk about in racing.
Yeah, there's plenty going on. It was nice to bounce back on the weekend with a good and profitable day at Sha Tin, and then didn't do a lot during the week, of course, with these weather conditions in Hong Kong, where while they were predicting Armageddon, they pretty much got it as well, and it just makes it really, really tough. So we limited what we did on Wednesday. Fortunately, what we did was right, and looking forward to this weekend where the weather could still be an issue. We're hoping it won't be. And the one thing, Richo, Hong Kong get a lot of rain through the week, but if it doesn't rain on the day, we might be okay still. So the track drains that well, but it has been quite inclement. But we've done the form as usual, and I'm hoping for good conditions.
And we'll be providing you with all the winners for Sunday with analysis from both Shane and also Hutch, hutchishonkers.com. Our very special guest was an elite rider. He's now retired. He's an author. He's got glasses and he looks very intelligent. His name is Olivier Doleuze. He is going to be a star attraction later on. Of course, the world-famous Genius or Slaughter coming up as well. We'll burst out of the gates in a moment. Welcome, RS Dye. The rain fell on Wednesday night. Did you bet or no bet?
I had one bet. Street Scream, I think it was about right. Second last race, it probably should have won. Had a bad run in the race, run third, so I got my money. I won a little bit. But no, I shut up shop straight away. I didn't like the meeting once it rained like that.
How tough is it to ride in those conditions as well?
Well, first thing you got to do is put on about 3 or 4 pairs of goggles, because you will pull them off during the race because the mud comes back and hits the goggles, or they fog up and you can't see. It's not easy. It's difficult. If you watch the Kentucky Derby on the weekend, which was amazing, that jockey had about 8 pairs on of goggles. I think I had a look and I said, Jesus, you got to have at least 8 pairs on. So it's not easy when you're riding in the muck, but you just got to put up with it and cope.
I think the reason, just harking back to the conditions a bit, I mean, people in Australia or elsewhere will go, well, why don't you bet? Because it's a wet track. And I think Shane will be on the same page here. But because in Hong Kong, for the vast majority of the time, we're racing on good or good to firm tracks, really. And then all of a sudden you do get wet tracks. It's just, it can be guesswork. You're really finding it difficult. You don't have the history with a lot of runners on which one's handle it. And people say, oh, well, this horse won overseas on a wet track. But Shane, I'm not sure what your take on it is, but it may have won overseas on a wet track, and there's some that do transfer that form, but there's a lot that don't.
Well, I don't do any wet track form because it's a waste of time, and I'll tell you why. You can have 20 inches of rain before the races at Sha Tin. And if it stops an hour before the first, I'll bet my life that track is fast and good. And yet we've had 20 inches of rain. It's the most unbelievable track I've ever seen, that track. So what's the point in 2 days or 3 days doing wet form? The track only is rain affected in Hong Kong when it is actually raining through the day and through the meeting and the racing on it, then it cuts up. So it's very difficult. And you don't get that often in Hong Kong. And when it is a wet track, you find that the form normally doesn't stand up. Horses that run well on the day don't come back and repeat it, and that happens a lot.
And I saw that firsthand, the international meeting a number of years ago. Highland Reel won one of the Group 1s, so that someone, whoever's watching and listening, will know that year. It was, say, 4 or 5 years ago, Hutch, that you and I were together over there. And the Wednesday night, it hose raining all day, and I said, well, surely the races are called off. The look of disdain.
No.
Races won't be called off. What are you talking about?
You wouldn't believe. I mean, Shane has just pretty much pointed out what it could be like in terms of the amount. It is incredible the amount of rain it can take. It's got that sand base. It drains unbelievably well. Look, it doesn't take a lot on the day. If they're racing on it, you don't need a heck of a lot, and it can get churned up if the weather conditions are in that range. But yeah, I think it's the best advice is just buyer beware, really, and under those circumstances.
Rich, I'll tell you a little story. So when you're riding in Hong Kong, as soon as the last race is over, you just pack up and leave that night at the end of the season, and you have your holiday. So I think it was the second or third season I'm there, and I broke my back 3 weeks before the end of the season. And I was in a brace and everything, and I couldn't travel, and I had to stay there and lie on the bed. So I'm in my apartment, and the apartment overlooks the race course. So it's the very next morning after the last meeting on the Monday, and the whole track is gone. It's been ripped up. The tractors are in there. There's bulldozers everywhere. They've just gone straight through and ploughed through it and taken all the grass off it and everything. And before I knew it, they'd planted and redone a new track. And that happens every year. They put a new track in every year, and it starts on the Monday after the last race.
Yeah, I was there one year, and it was not long after the last race they were starting to get into it. I mean, literally minutes going back some time. So yeah, they've got the money to put into it, and they do.
Huge show coming up. Let's burst out of the gates first. And we burst out with you, Hutch. What a bounce back on Saturday, because we had this frustrating run on Hutchie's Honkers of finding the right horse, but either being extremely unlucky, bumping into a good one. But we had this string of seconds, and then Saturday I gave you the challenge, and you flexed and went bang, 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 bang.
Oh, look, you need that's racing, isn't it, Nay? Some days, like you said, we had a lot of seconds during the week, but look, there were some nice performances here. Obviously, Eremo was our best, and I don't know if I'll be sticking with him or not, but look, he had the blinkers applied and he managed to win. So that was nice to get back in the circle. Red Elise was overs. Our main play in the race was Riders Rain, who was knocked down. Of course, this was the race that Joe got the suspension for too. But fortunately, we found Red Elise, and I liked Power Cap, and this race rated well on my stuff. And it was a tight one, wasn't it? So there on the line, but fortunately we got the winners to go our way. And Vukan at a nice price. He was down in class, so we had a nice spread of winners. We had an even money pop, a $13 chance there. We played a couple in that race, but no, it was good to bounce back there. And of course, like I said, Wednesday was pretty tough, but I think we can carry it forward to the weekend, Richo. It's it's going to be a competitive card. There's some really good races there.
Well, you are the right man to find plenty of winners. RS, what happened to I'm a Single Man?
Don't know. The vets found nothing wrong with him, I don't think. Might have raced a bit close. I still think he's better when he gets back, that horse. I know he's run second when ridden forward, but his 3 wins, he's always got back and stormed home. And he might have been ridden a bit close, but he also could have had a problem. And I think Sack said he didn't feel right going to the gates, Clint.
Yeah, that was it. And, he went down to the start. I think he let the vet know down there that the horse didn't feel right in his action. Then they double-checked him down there. He got cleared to run, but he was too disappointing. They haven't found anything subsequently, but according to the steward's report, there was that concern down at the start. So I think it's just one of those things in racing, unfortunately. I mean, he hasn't turned up for whatever reason. They couldn't find a problem, but what can you do?
Richo, I've said this to you before on the shows. Vets can't pick up all problems, but jockeys can. And it's happened to me many times. I'll ride a horse and say, this has got a problem here. And the vet looks at it, checks it, trots it, says there's nothing wrong. Might even x-ray it. And I'll just go, I'm telling you, it's got a problem. A jockey knows, whereas a vet doesn't always know. And if Zach's going to the start and thinks that horse has got a problem, it's got a problem 100%. He doesn't say that every time he goes to the start. He would probably only say that maybe twice a season out of 500 rides, if that.
So just on that point, that was what I was going to ask you. So Zach said to the veterinary officer, there's something not right with this horse. He says, no, we're going to pass it. Basically, Zach then is obligated to fulfill his mount. He can't object and say, no, there's something seriously
wrong.
Well,
I think reading what the report said, then the vet and the jockey both, after it being trotted up or examined down there, they both couldn't sort of pinpoint what was an issue when I read it. So they've both given it the clearance at the start. So it's a hard way to do your cash, but that's the way it goes.
Yeah, it's so tough.
But then there's the vice versa side. I rode a horse in Australia once, and it flipped over in the gates, and they allowed it to run, and it won. Its next start, it went up in the gates, put its foot on the side and come back down. There was nothing wrong with it, and it would have won the Group 1 race for sure, and it was short price favourite. They pulled it out, trotted around. I said, there's nothing wrong. The vet says it's sore, it's scratched. I blew up and went ballistic. I said, are you effing kidding me? And I was in the steward's room and got into trouble for it. I said, he's got no idea. I said, there's nothing wrong with the horse. Anyway, the horse was scratched, and it cost himself a derby, actually. He would have won for sure. He couldn't have got beat. And he was about 6-4 in those days, I should say, so 250.
I know you're not great with names. Can you remember the name of that horse?
Yes, I can. Solar Circle. I won the big race for Bart Cummings at a $500,000 race, which in those days was a lot of money at the Gold Coast. And then he was about 6-4 in the Derby, and he couldn't have got beat in the Derby.
So the postscript to I'm a Single Man, the horse named after Shane, is that it will be required to perform to the satisfaction of the stewards in a barrier trial and subjected to an official vet examination. So we watch your horse, Shane, with great interest there. Hey, just quickly on the premierships as well. So Joe Moreira suspended for how many meetings has he missed?
He got 2, and it was a bit of strategy, I think, when Joe's taken them, as Zach sort of alluded to in a recent interview with the South China Morning Post, when he said, I think he's taken them quickly because it doesn't really give Zach an opportunity to pick up any one of those because he's already booked for a ride. So quite smart by Joe.
So Joe 115, Zach 110. So while the cat's away, will the mice play? So can Zach catch up that 5? Training premiership, Frankie Law 71, John Size 70, Tony Cruz 54. That is an enthralling battle that is going on. RS Dye, why isn't Golden 60 going to Japan?
I wouldn't take him. I know, listening to Vincent, he really wanted to go. Listen, that many horses go to Japan and don't come back the same, whether it be that good horse of Bart Cummings at Shaftesbury Avenue. Remember him when he went? He was a superstar. He got sick there, wasn't the same. You see it in one of the greatest horses I've ever seen, Silent Witness. He went to Japan, wasn't the same when he come back. If I had a good horse in Hong Kong, like Golden 60, why would you want to travel him? Keep him in Hong Kong. He's going to win everything every year, and you're going to get an extra year out of him. I think they did the right thing, but some people want the glory and prestige of going overseas, but that wouldn't have been me. And I think they did the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can see both points. I mean, interesting that Vincent Ho, who wrote it, Shane, though, he said it'd be good for the horse to have even a mental freshen. I mean, I'm just thinking from the horse's perspective, of course, he wants to go and showcase this horse around the world, but he said even for Golden 60 to get out of Hong Kong might be great for him as well. I mean, not only to showcase his talent, but just to give him a little mental freshen. And we see horses time and time again sometimes, and we see a lot of trainers in Australia, they're happy to travel them early to toughen them up as well. And it's another alternative view on that.
Was it good for Silent Witness? Was it good for Shaftesbury Avenue? Well, I could go through a list of them that have gone.
Oh, there's been plenty that have travelled well and come back and got better too.
Risk. There's been lots, and from Hong Kong. But that's the risk you take. Whereas if he stays in Hong Kong, he hasn't got a risk. He's going to come back next year and dominate again.
Talking about moving, very elegant moves to France. Did that surprise you?
At this stage of the career, a little bit, it did. But it sounds like the ownership group wanted to really travel for some time.
80% of the ownership
I
group.
thought the most interesting fact was that the nominations closed, I think, 2 days ago, and it wasn't down there, and all of a sudden there's a stable change. So I think that's quite telling in itself.
Yeah. So now there's been a statement today that 20% of the ownership, the original owners, the breed, including the breeder, have declared their hand and said, listen, we were following the advice of Chris Waller, so we're going to offer our share to the existing owners, the 80% that want to travel her. So off to Francis Henri.
I mean,
Greffard.
I don't know if Chris. I mean, he had probably the best horse we've seen in outside of Frankel and the modern era and Winks, and he was happy to stay here. And I've got no sort of objections if they want to stay good. I mean, as Shane said, there's plenty of riches on offer here. But if you're going to travel with one, that would have been a pretty good one to go anywhere.
So it was very elegant as a 7-year-old mare going. It's a little late in her life, but we wish her all the very best, and all we can do is barrack for her. So we burst out of the gates, and now we need to get to the segment that you all love, Genius or Slaughter.
They sweep for home now. Veandercross has come very wide. Veandercross answering the urgings of Shane Dye. Mannerism coming at him. Mannerism has got it.
Daring tactics by Shane Dye. He's got Octagonal in full flight on the corner. Bold tactics by Shane Dye are going to pay off, and he pinches the Chipping Norton.
Shane Dye casts his eyes over the racing in Hong Kong. A genius rider, a Slaughter. We remember with great fondness his great ride on the mighty Octagonal. That was genius. And maybe Veandercross, just maybe, one day he might admit that he might have got that not exactly centimetre perfect. Genius or Slaughter?
A long time waiting, mate. Might as well have a sleep.
Who is the genius ride first up?
There were a couple this week. I thought this ride was outstanding on Blake on Wednesday night. Keris Unicorn. He drew the outside and he missed the start and went straight back to last. The good thing about this horse was this horse here can lay in. And when a horse lays in, you're best to be on the fence. And he would have realised that and stayed on the fence. He never panicked at any stage. He never wanted to come out. He just stayed there and he rode the fence the whole way. And that's what won the race. He could have come out here because the horse in front of him wasn't really going to take him into the race. But when the horse in front of him kind of come off the fence around the bend, that's when he cut back inside of it. And, of course, he laid in a little bit, went to the run, got a great ride. He was very patient, never at any stage. And this is what these horses can do if you give them a chance. I think Blake's riding extremely well. He's a different jock now to what he was when he first arrived. And it's just a shame he's leaving. Because next year he would have gone to the next jock in the level outside of Zach and Joe.
Fantastic ride. But he is becoming, I noticed with Blake, he's right. I think he's taking a leaf out of the RS sort of playbook. He's dropping a lot of them out, riding a lot that particular way, isn't he? He's happy to bide his time. And it was a fantastic ride, don't get me wrong. But
he's not riding short price favourites. If you're riding short price favourites and they're going to be running in the first 3, 4, like Joe and Zach, that's a different ballgame. But when you're riding things like that are 10-1 and haven't got a great chance and get back a bit, you got to ride them for luck. You can't circle them because they're not good enough to win. If he had circled them on that, it wouldn't have won. So, yes, and I don't disagree on what you're saying, but put him on the right horse who can be running 3rd and 4th, and he will be. There's another one here which was on Wednesday night, and I'll explain this. Green colours, Vincent Ho. This was outstanding, and I'm going to explain why. They went slow here, and if you watch him, he gets in one off the fence. Now, he's following the horse in the blue cap. Now, when he gets into the back, he's got 3 options. 1, to check his horse back, 2, to come out and sit 3 wide, or 3, to take off and go. Now, he made the right option. You'll see the horse in the blue cap as they get into the back straight, check a little bit. And he would have had to check. And if he did then, he couldn't have won the race. It would have been impossible how slow they're going. It's coming up here soon. Watch the horse in the blue cap. He'll come back a bit very soon. It's somewhere around here. And you'll see Vincent see him come back there now. Yeah. He just loses, and Vincent says, well, I can't pull back. I've got to go. If he had come back, he wouldn't have won. If he comes back out and sits 3 wide, he wouldn't have won. And it was a great incentive move at that stage. It was the right move, Clint.
Shane, it was the right move. It was a great ride. I thought this was I thought both rides that you put out, Blake's was fantastic. So was this. But Vinny was good here for that moment. It sort of forced his hand, but he went with it. Do you think Joe should have gone with him, Shane, at that point? Joe was on his back. He was on nearly fine the favourite. He waited, and the race got away from him, and he came again late.
Oh, well, I actually haven't gone through Joe's ride, so I don't want to comment until I see it. But anyone that was back has missed the boat, because once he did that, nothing else could win. He was always going to win, you know? Yeah. Like if I could bet in the run, which you can't, at the top back straight when he started to go. That's the only horse you wanted to be on. It was the right move at the right time. Because the pace was slow and you can't be checking. I see jockeys now taking off and trying to circle them at Happy Valley, whereas they never used to, and they're going too fast, the leaders, and you got no hope. And they get there and they're gone.
That's why I want to ask you a little bit. Now, we talked about Blake's great ride in the one before, but he was on a leader there at the top of the weights. Was he going too slow? I think he was, and it sort of encouraged a move. And that's what I think a lot of them are getting a little bit wrong in terms of rating them in front. The fine line, Shane, between going a good clip, but you want to be going fast enough where you don't attract them to make that mid-race move.
I've always said that on the show. It's very fine. You don't want to go too fast, but you can't go too slow at Happy Valley because they're taking off now. And if you get attacked from the back markers halfway down the back and you're a leader, you can't win because the pressure's on you too far from home, and you do not see many win. You know, so it's not easy. Felix Kutzi was always, when I was riding there, a very good front riding leading jockey. He used to rate them well.
Best up there for me, head and shoulders above the rest. Zach, on a front runner. He usually rates them beautifully.
Beautifully. No slaughters this week.
I couldn't find. Well, see, my slaughter is when I'm watching the race live and something just sticks out to me, and I go, Jesus, why is he doing that? This week or last Saturday and Wednesday night, I never saw one. So I'm not putting up one if there's not one, trying to make a genius. So a slaughter so all the boys can sleep well tonight and not have to worry.
That is good news. And talking about all the boys, can you do some investigations? This little whisper that's going around the jockeys' ranks at the moment is becoming a roar in my ear from my various sources that Joe Moreira might be going to Japan. Are you hearing anything, Shane?
I'm not. I don't ask, though. I'm pretty isolated here. So I'm not saying he is or he isn't. When he was there last time, he did very, very well. I think he had a winning ratio of about 2.6. So every 2.6 rides, he rode a winner. And, of course, you get those 3-month contracts and then you have to go. So I've got no idea. Look, his future's secure wherever he goes, whether it's Japan or Hong Kong. He doesn't have to worry. He's a great jockey and he's going to ride winners.
So he has to pass at both a written and an oral test. Apparently, by my reports, my spies are telling me he's been practicing hard in the aspect that he failed. So, Hutch, are you hearing anything?
No, not at this point. But
he's done that before.
That doesn't mean that it's not potentially true. But he's got some unfinished business in Hong Kong.
Yeah,
he'll have.
We want him to stay.
Yeah, we do.
we're desperate. Joe, I know you watch. Don't be going to Japan. Stay with us, please. There's genius or slaughter. Let's learn some lessons. Let's jump into the classroom. We jump into the classroom and it's all about trying to find future winners, Hutch. And then we look at the vet report on the Hong Kong Jockey Club website. What information do you grab from those vet reports?
Well, they're very thorough and access to them is, I think, outstanding for people who are having a bet. And, you can read into it what you will. But any of the horses' past history or they've had a little issue, you can look it up. Because you can see what track work they've done, you might see there's a gap. Okay, I'll go into the vet side of things and see if he's had a little issue. So you are well aware of all that information and that can fill you with a bit more confidence like, oh, no, he hasn't had any problem. They just wanted to give him a couple of days off or whatever the case may be. But the point is the information's there so you can do it. Now, one of the interesting factors with a lot of the vet reports, and I just wanted to sort of have a look at horses that have had a bleeding attack or blood in the trachea, or mucus.
So they've had a cold or internal hemorrhage.
It's pretty common in terms of mucus, or they scope with it. They scoped after the race and they scope with some internal issues, and it's quite common. They will often send beaten favourites or whatever it may be. So how to digest some of this information, and we must thank Sahil at Sahil Race Quant for all this information. And this is just, I think, interesting, and it may be interesting for some trainers out there as well. Look, horses that have returned with mucus after a start, we've got 481. 17 of them are one. So you're going at 3.5% and you're losing 37.5% on your turnover. The bleeders one, well, there was always that theory, wasn't there, that you didn't mind sort of backing them fresh up after they'd had that. Well, I can tell you that only 4.5% of them are winning. So it's not a great strike rate. And once again, that internal little scoping where there's traces of it, it's not a great turnover. Bottom line, you're losing money if you follow them. And I don't think that winning strike rate's anything special either. So that's just some information for people that if you see that in the vet report, if you see a post-race issue, you might be a little bit cautious about diving into them the next time you go around. To offset that somewhat, we'll get the next caption up or the next page up where it just shows some of the stables that are probably going at a little bit better. And from a small sample size, you can see the likes of Frankie Law. And Tony Cruz seems to sort of get to the bottom of it pretty quick, but from a very small sample size. And there's some of the stables that are going pretty well. Tony Millard is another one.
Shane, do you take a lot of information and a lot of importance from this info?
Oh, definitely. You see horses still run well with blood, but you don't see them run well with mucus a lot of the time. And so I just put a wipe down for that run and then go on their previous runs and trials since then, because they always trial after they've had mucus or blood. But no, you've got to take notice of it. It is very important.
So for mucus, is it just as simple as we try to always put things in human terms so we can understand it? Are we just considering that the horse has a little virus, a little influenza?
Could have a little
bit
virus,
of
but I think
cold?
it's also the breathing side of things, and
Right.
there's grades of it. So
Okay.
they might be, I think if I could be a little bit incorrect, but it goes from 1 to 5. It's a bit
Yeah.
like a lameness thing where they say he's 1 out of 5 lame or 3 out of 5. And I think the mucus has a similar reading, sort of, sometimes some are worse than others, but they don't publish the exact amount. But as Shane said, the point is you got to be forgiving, but you've also got to be a little bit cautious about
Yeah.
following them in again.
And that's the key point, because I see that a lot in form guides, lame, and people say, oh, we'll forget last up because it was lame. But I think if it's lame, there's a reason why. So therefore, I'm very cautious to jump into a horse who last start pulled up lame.
Oh, I agree, and it's a personal thing. Like some people that don't worry about it at all. But the thing is, you get some consistency there as well. Like, which I would imagine you do in Australia to a point. But you got the same sort of vets looking at these horses day in, day out. So anytime you get that level of consistency, and you do read something like that, it is something to bear in mind. And yeah, it's an important tool.
And the other great advantage Hong Kong racing has, Shane, is the horse, the pool, the fact that there's not transient horses, say, for example, like Melbourne, Sydney, horses going up and down and trying to cross those form references. Through this information through the vets, plus also all the track work, etc., plus the form guide, we're seeing this same pool. And Shane, you must get to know these horses really well.
Oh, definitely. You get to know the jockeys, you get to know the trainers, you get to know the horses, and it's pretty easy once you do. So it's a great system to bet on or from.
I'll tell you what, it also brings up an interesting point, and the Hong Kong players won't know much about this, but the Aussie viewers of the show will. It's a little bit, and I was talking about the consistency, it's a little bit like we've seen in a couple of big races where we saw with Julius Sandu's horse, of course, who was scratched
Lofty
from the Blue Diamond this year. By all accounts, it was, having these similar traits all year, and they scratched on the day. You got a feel for connections.
Yeah.
And obviously the vets are looking at it on new eyes that were examined and scratched it. But you do see it in some big races. We see it every year with a cup, new set of eyes on some of these horses, and you see different trainers go, well, this is how they trot every day. And
Marmello,
week in,
Huey
week out.
Morrison, still don't bring it up. It's still too raw.
I don't know what the answer is to a
Yeah.
lot of it. I mean, you can see both sides of it, but it would be very frustrating.
Let's add some significant star power to our show. Olivier Doleuze, our special guest. Well, our special star guest this week is a bona fide superstar of world racing, and Olivier Doleuze, whether it be in France where he won multiple Group 1 races, eventually making his way to Hong Kong where just short of 600 winners, over 1,400 winners throughout his extraordinary career. He eventually hung up the saddle, but he's our special guest today. Olivier, thank you so much for your time. We catch up with you in San Sebastian, Spain. You are looking fit and tremendous. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Jason. It's nice to be here with you.
And we'd love to talk to you about your whole career and especially about Hong Kong racing. But first, what are you doing now in retirement?
Actually, I've been stopping riding in 2019. And it was a big hole in my life suddenly, because Hong Kong racing is very exciting, and certainly when you stop, it's you miss something, So then I take the time to study a bit. I always like, all my sports and nutrition and stuff like that. So I decide to go further and study nutrition for a while, and now I'm writing some books. So I'm a writer now.
You certainly look like a writer, Ollie. It's good to see you there. You're looking very studious and looking very well. And once again, hey, Ollie, we're going to talk a little bit about that writing side of things in a little while. Just looking back to some of the Hong Kong days, we wanted to have a chat to you about that and Hong Kong racing in general, and of course your take on Hong Kong at the moment. But I just want to bring back some fond memories for you, of course, and that association you had with that superstar Good Barber, and just your take on some of those moments through his wonderful career.
He's one of the best horses I have the chance to ride,
We're just watching his brilliant acceleration, Olivier, and that was what was so unique about him. The mile, he was bordering on unbeatable, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah, he's the best miler I've ever ride. And even Christophe, who has been riding him at some stage, always told me that he's one of the best miler he ever ride. He, even compared to some horses in France, he was just too good. He had this kind of acceleration. He was really special, And at that time, I think Hong Kong races was really strong. He beat some very serious horses, and to win 3 times the champion mile, you really, the international mile, you really need to have a lot of quality. It's not an easy race to win. And he was really, really good horse. He's one of the best memory all time in my career, I think.
And Ollie, one thing we talk about the horse and the excitement that he brought, but what you brought to the game, and I think a lot of people will remember, is a lot of excitement, a lot of exuberance, a lot of flair, the celebrations. Ollie, just talk us through. I mean, I know your personality was coming out. We don't see a lot of that nowadays, but we love that about you.
I mean, yeah, I used to do that when I was in France, when I was young, and I think I don't have a really good feedback about it. And when I come in Hong Kong, probably at the beginning, I think they make me come to bring a bit of this excitement after race. After winning, and then I find a place then where I was able to do that without any people was criticizing. So I was really happy. And again, when you ride in Hong Kong, there is at least 20,000 people at the racetrack, where in France during the day there is only 10 people. So of course the impact is completely different. And it's again, when it's now, then I realize when you're in the game, you win the game. So you work, there is a lot of pressure from the owner, from the trainer, you're a bit on part of the system. But when you step away and you see how big Hong Kong racing is, how tough it is, and Shane is there, he can tell you about it. When you have the chance to win those big races in Hong Kong, there is nothing compared to that. I think it's a privilege to have the chance to ride in Hong Kong. I'm so grateful to ride against all those top riders, because you compete against all the best riders in the world. And it was a great time for myself. I'm very happy to what I did, and that's all. Now it's behind, but it will always be in my heart.
The thing that people don't realize, when you're in Hong Kong, they tell you to celebrate a win, whereas in Australia, they tell you not to celebrate a win, no matter what you do. In Hong Kong,
I remember that.
True.
I get fined in Australia. Yeah, I win one race in Sydney and for Michael Kent during the Oaks Day, and I get fined after the post, I think 5,000 Aussie, because I tried to do the same that I was doing in Hong Kong, but they straight away catch me in the steward room and they give me 5,000 fine.
So in Hong Kong, when I got there, they said to me, Winfred said, this is about celebration and you've got to make the public feel part of it. And by doing that, you've got to celebrate. So Olivier used to, when he won a race, go up the top of the straight, turn his horse around, give it a kick and let it go, and drop the reins and stand up and hold his hands in the air with not holding onto the reins. And the horse would go galloping down the straight, and Olivier's going like this, holding the hands. Correct, Olivier?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. I think I do one time in Mauritius. I dropped the rein before the post. And
yes,
and I won the race. Yeah, that's the picture, correct. That was 100 meters before the post, I think.
That is
Just
amazing.
imagine if you did that in Australia, what they would do to you. They might bloody give you a year's suspension for something like that.
Throw you in jail.
Another funny story was it was at Sha Tin one day. And we've gone across the winning post, and Olivier's come down the outside and he's just beat me. But as he's gone past the winning post, he's going, yeah, and throwing his arms up and celebrated. Well, his horse come running straight in and nearly put me over the fence and decked me. I was like,
I remember that. I remember that, Chen. Yeah, correct.
So they took him in the stewards, and they were nearly going to suspend him for interference after the winning post.
Exactly. Yeah, I've been lucky because he was just after the post. Otherwise, they will have been suspend me for sure. You know.
They said I was in the room, of course, giving interference, and I didn't want him to get suspended, but I wanted him to be a little bit more sensible when you're doing that.
But the good thing is when I realized how tough it was to ride in Hong Kong when we was there. You know, there was a bunch of really top jockey. I mean, Douglas was the number one, but you was there. Robbie Frad was there. Of course, Brett was there. There was
on my wing.
Of course, but there was always a good vibe. It was very tough, but we was quite all close together. It was a good atmosphere. You know, it was something that I think is getting lost after now. I don't know now because I haven't ride there for a long time, but it was really like we was a part of the cake, but everyone was I think you
were there the night we had the blackjack game, didn't you, when SARS was on? Were you there or not there? Were you in Hong Kong?
No, I was not there.
Oh, that was a funny night.
We bet. So, Olivier, what was it like in the jockeys room with RS Dye? You've just mentioned a couple of some big personalities. We enjoy hanging out with him. Describe Shane Dye to us.
Oh, Shane was a gentleman, you know. He was, especially when I meet Shane at the beginning, because Shane has very strong career, you know. When I meet him, he was already maybe 100 more winners, Group 1 in Australia. So he was the man. And I saw many riders in Hong Kong, really top rider. But the only one I saw who was making horses finish in Happy Valley was Shane. I never see a jockey make the horses finish like that. He was just coming from nowhere, and suddenly Shane was coming from in Happy Valley. You thought you're going to win the race, and Shane was there. He catch you on the line. It was something like, he's not the kind of jockey who was winning by 5. Like me, I don't care. I was going for win. I win by 10 lengths, 20 lengths, no problem. But Shane, he always come, beat you half length, but he only beat you one. He beat you 2 times, 3 times, always with these small life lengths, you know.
I was always worried about the handicaps, the rating points.
I know that. That's why. Why.
Always.
It was really...
just off the subject, I'm surprised you switched to writing books. I thought you would own a shoe store for sure. How's the shoes going? If no one knows, Olivier had the best range of crocodile shoes I've ever seen. He had hundreds of different pairs. How many shoes you got there?
I don't know. You know, I give a lot of, because I don't have any more space anymore. So I only keep but at one stage I may have maybe 30 pair of shoes or 40 pair of crocodile shoes.
Remember you used to show me? I just got another crocodile pair of shoes, mate. Have a look at these.
Yeah, he used to design them all. Hey, Ollie, now obviously, like you said, you stepped away from 2019. One, do you keep an eye on Hong Kong racing at all at the moment? And two, if you do, what do you think of the riding ranks compared to when you were riding there?
To tell you the truth, Clint, I arrived in one stage in my life that I have to run away from racing, because when you ride at a certain level, especially in Hong Kong, is just so overwhelming sometimes. And there is some good, there is some bad, but when it stopped, it's really, again, it was a big hole in my life. So I don't want to continue to watch racing if I'm not part of it, you know. And so I really decide to step away for good. So I don't watch racing anymore. I miss it sometimes, of course. Now it's getting better, and I try to keep to keep myself busy all the time. But it was too good to stop riding and too difficult to stop riding and on the same time watching racing and watching other people riding and stuff like that. And so it's behind now. And,
stepping away from sport at an elite level, we see it in over a number of different sports, and that when you hang the boots up,
that transition
is difficult.
And the transition for Olivier has been through as an author. So his book, The Perfect Athlete, Winning with Nutrition, sounds fantastic. So is there, that's the beautiful book. Is there more books always with a nutrition tilt? Is that the way we're going to continue on?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that's I decide to, as a jockey, I always try to watch my weight quite seriously. I was not a light jockey, but I always like nutrition. So it was a big part as a jockey's life you have to watch your food. Otherwise you can't be competitive. You can't sweat 3 kilos, and especially in Hong Kong with all the pressure and stuff like that, you need to have your brain ready to ride, and it's better to be serious with nutrition. I think it's a big help. And when I was jockey, I tried different diets. And so when I retire, I keep studying and I start to read some studies and stuff like that. And someday I say, why I don't try to give a bit my knowledge and try to do something that may be helping other people, and not only in jockeys work. I say, why try to go more deep and try to find something a bit more serious? But what I find out is when I try to watch and do some research, it was always very complicated, So I said, well, I'm going to try to write a book and try to make it simple. So people like the guy who run on Sunday, he want to improve his performance, maybe he can take my book and maybe he will learn something, and then I will be very happy, So I do some studies, and I meet one guy I work close because, of course, I could not ride with my poor English. And we made the book together, and I'm very happy. And the second book gonna come out in maybe 1 or 2 months. So it's something new for me. I'm very happy, keep me busy, and if I can help some people, I'm very happy.
And it's called The Perfect Athlete, so it's named after you, Hutchbuster, and that's where you can buy it. It's available, Olivier, it's available in all good bookstores and a few bad ones as well. And hopefully in Australia, we're able to purchase. We can scan that barcode and put in an order, and you can ship it out to Australia. Why San Sebastian? Why have you decided to settle and base yourself there?
No, actually, I'm based in south of France because I'm living in near Saint-Tropez, where I'm from. But actually,
very good party scene. You like to party, don't you, Olivier?
No, I'm an old man now. I'm quite.
That's
see, I
what
wear
I say.
glasses. I'm a writer now. I wear glasses, so But no,
I'm an old man with glasses on, but as soon as I take them off, I feel 20 years younger. And how I go?
No, I'm only in San Sebastian for 1 week just to go away and see some friends. That's all.
When I meet people, I sum them up pretty quickly, and it sounds terrible, but they're either full of shit or not full of shit. And Olivier has not got a bad bone in his body or full of shit. And I really liked you a lot when I was in Hong Kong. And when you used to come to Macau, I loved it. And you're just a good person. And I hope everything goes well. And I will catch up with you one day over there because I like getting to Spain.
Thank you, Shendoi. I'm waiting for you anytime, brother.
Oh, sounds perfect. The one and only Olivier Doleuze. Thank you so much for your time, Olivier. Good luck with the book.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Brilliant to catch up with Olivier Doleuze, and jump online and go and buy his next book that's out for sale. Let's try to find winners. Hutchishonkers.com is the site you need to subscribe to, join. You can do it week on week, or you can do it throughout the entire season. And last week, he shot the lights out. Let's have a look at a couple of key races we're keen to bet into. Hutch, and I'll take you to the end of the program in race number 10. Solid Impact's the mount for Zach Purton, I think straight away, of the battle with Zach and Joe. So a big opportunity for Zach on Sunday.
Yeah, it's a really interesting race, this final event. With Solid Impact, it was beaten by Rev Parisian for Paul O'Sullivan, and that horse went to another level last start. And then we have, of course, Brilliant Way's been in good form. He brings that Bazunga form to the table, packing treadmill as well. And Beauty Mission has awkwardly drawn there. Luke Curry, I reckon that obviously with Joe Moreira suspended, this might have been a late pickup ride for Luke, but he's been given a good chance. Beauty Mission also, the Solid Impact form. And then Flying Season, who's that straight course horse that's been so spectacular. And, of course, he suffered defeat to Run Cool last start, but he's in the game. It's a great race to finish the day, and we'll be playing in it. Which ones we'll be playing, I'm not sure. And I haven't even mentioned Kaijing Dragon there. Pardon me, he's down the bottom. Now, Shane, the way I read this, on this occasion, it's a key form reference, but of course it was the 24th of April, it was the Champions Day, and I think there was clearly a pattern up and in. We saw Rev Parisian hold off the challenge from Solid Impact. On face value, Beauty Mission was disappointing, and he's got to turn the tables, but I think he can this day. There was some stats out of that meeting that to me suggested there was a real pattern and it suited those on speed. So they were still going to be hard to beat, but I think they had a few favours in terms of tempo and pattern on the day.
I picked that up after the first race. The first race of the day was Lucky Quality, and I was backing Fun and Glory in race 2, and I wouldn't back him because of it. There's no way Lucky Quality could do what it did in race 1. And the second horse, I think it was Fighting Star, they cleared out and they were 1-2 in the run, and it shouldn't have happened. The track was off. It was a huge leaders track. Now, in this race, you got Lucky Quality come out of that day. You got Rhea Perrison, who you said. There's even the bottom one. He won that day, if you remember correctly. He led and won, Kanying Jagan. So there's 3 winners from that meeting. So this is a little bit tricky. And then you've got Flying Season in the race, who's got very good form, but over 1,000 metres. I would gamble with Beauty Mission because Luke's on him, so you might get a little bit more of a price, and he's got gate 12. And pros love outside gates if they're going to lead, but this horse isn't going to lead. So whether they back him or not, I don't know. But then again, by race 10, you're going to know how the track is going to be, whether they can come from back or it's a leader's track. But I think that's a tricky race, Clint, because all these horses raced on an unfair track last time.
I tend to agree. I like the winkers or the cheek pieces going on Beauty Mission, but I just wanted to bring up one thing with Flying Season. We really liked him last start when he was beaten by Run Cool. And what I do sometimes is try to go back and find out why he hasn't run to that previous mark. Well, he's had a similar gap between his last 3 runs. So he won 3 starts back, about 21 days or 3 weeks between runs each time. But interestingly, the work pattern changed between his second last win, or his most recent win, and his last start. Manfred Mann, the horse put on more than 10 pounds. He didn't gallop him. He's given him a couple of turf gallops that's a lot more similar to what we saw before. So there was a clear change in pattern, a slightly longer gap between his last run and this one. But Manfred has definitely changed the work schedule. And once again, we talk about finding all this information. So you just go and go back and say, okay, in my personal, the way I look at it, what changed? He looked like he blew up late to me. He was disappointing that last 100. And I wonder if they thought, that might have been the feedback. Yeah, well, we were a bit soft on him in between runs. It wasn't the same schedule in terms of track work. We've given him more this time in, and he could really bounce back. I think he's a really interesting runner Flying Season.
But Clint, do you think he'll run 1,200 metres?
No, I don't think it's an issue. I don't think it's an issue, provided that he doesn't overdo it in terms of keenness. Chadwick does take over from him. I don't think 1,200 will be a problem for him, but it's a genuine question.
Okay, we wait with great interest to see what your selections are on Hutchie's Honkers. Can we go back at another race number 9? Zach's on the toppy here.
That he is. Silvestre's a hard one to knock. He's in good form. The one that I'll be definitely keen on to an extent is Satanta. He comes out of that race we just watched. Get online, watch it. He settled back in the field with Blake, and he ran on very nicely. In fact, I think he had some of the best closing sections at the whole meeting. I have written it down here. He had the 4th best final 200. And for that run, they took the blinkers off and put the tongue tie on. But outside of that, Super 10, he was another one favoured by the pattern last start. We've got Escape Route, who's in a good bit of form, and Master Hero resuming. So it's
Have
another.
we given up on the Hulk?
I think so. The Hulk hasn't been going quite well enough, but it's another competitive race, Shane.
Yeah, I like the horse you said, Santanta from gate 1. He's going to get a good run. The form out of his races earlier on when he was getting beat is quite good, and he was running well. And then they stepped him up for the good race, the group race with Romantic Warrior a mile, and it tested him. And then they went 16:50. It tested him, and then they dropped him back after 2 months to 1,200 metres, and he went really well last start. Here's Brilliant Way. You can see him battling on, getting to the line, running in a strong race. He's not the worst here. Oh, no, he's in the other race, isn't he?
Yeah, but Escape Route was a lot better. I think he's an interesting runner for John Size as well, Shane Escape Route. I know he struck a wet track there, and initially I was a little bit querying, was it the wet track that we saw an improved run? But his actual run before that at Happy Valley behind Smart Idea was really good. He was working home well from back in the field. He was just getting warm late. And then he ran out of a bit of room. They went to a wet track there, and he ran a lot better. And now he goes to 1,400 with John Size. Like, it just has that sense of timing about it with him.
He's improved every run, Clint. I've had him on my watch for a while, and I didn't mind him last start because you're correct. He went all right. And the start before that also up the straight over 1,000 metres. He got beat 6 lengths by Flying Season, but he didn't go bad. So he's improving every day. He's got an awkward gate. He's going to get back, so you're going to have to see how the track's riding.
My Satanta will be a play for sure. I think Blake hopefully won't be quite as far back. I like those little gear changes last start. I think they've been, as Shane sort of, they alluded to there with his sort of mixed preparation. Like they've gone for the mile. They're sort of, this is his go, I think. Yeah. 1,400, soft barrier, down in grade. He's ready now.
14th is best distance.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at the market for race 4. Zach is riding Earnest Feeling as his battle for the premiership here, and you've marked it $4.17.
I may shorten him in a little bit more by the time I get to Sunday, but this is, it'll be pretty close to where I've got him. I'll have him favourite for sure. Amigos Giggle down in has actually been pretty good. He was on that wet track the other day and had clear excuses. The interesting run and the key runner here in this field is Treasure of Field. It was a much, much better run from him at Happy Valley last start. Now he goes from 1,000 metres to 1,400. I don't know if he's going to see it out or not. That's a real question mark. So he's taking a lot of my market percentage. And I think Mission Smart will nearly be favourite. He's another one. I think Joe Moreira would have been booked for Mission Smart, and now he's obviously been suspended. So Blake, I would imagine, has picked up that ride. Mission Smart's been consistent. I think he'll nearly be favourite. Gate 11 might put a few off. But I think Ernest Feeling on this particular performance can really turn the tables, and I love Zach getting on him. What was your take on the sort of race as well, Shane?
Treasure of Field's going to struggle running 1,400. I'll pass on him. His 1,200 metre runs when he led, he stopped, but he did go better over 1,000 last start, so 14 has to be suspect. He's going to lead. I don't mind the topic, Clint, because he's got the 5 pounds off him. He's down in class, which is a big thing. His run the other day was okay. He'll go forward. And outside of Treasure of Field, there doesn't seem to be a lot of natural pace. I know Mission Smart can go forward, and he's better when he does go forward. So from gate 11, he'll roll across. Ernest Feeling's got a chance. Clint, he ran all right the other day. I think the main 3, looking at this, summing up very quickly, Amigos Giggle, Ernest Feeling, and Mission Smart. That's my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I can understand you taking a set against Treasure of Field. I'm not sure. He's a hard one for me. I don't know if the 1,400 will stretch him. It may well. Shane could be spot on the mark there. But
I'll tell you a horse that went well last start, Clint, Multiple Star. I just saw him in there. Yeah, he went well last start, and he had shown absolutely nothing, but he got back and ran on really well.
That, you mean the run 2 back behind Kung Fu Tea over the 14?
Yeah, over the 14 when he ran 3rd.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
Last start, it was 1,000 metres, Happy Valley, and he just went round, and he had no hope. But 2 runs ago, but he still come home last start in 22.86. But 2 starts ago, geez, he went well. He surprised me because I didn't think he had a hope. So a little bit of a roughie could be him.
It's an interesting race. We don't often see this in the bottom grade there. 13 of the 14 runners, Richo are maidens. They've never won a race, and one of them's won one. I mean, often you'll have horses that are limited that are in the grade. But just as a point of reference, some other tool that people use, starting price profile with various runners. Ernest Feeling early in the season, when Zach rode in a good Class 4 race, started even money. Didn't have too many excuses, but ran 5th. Then he backed up and rode it again. It started in the market and ran well in a much stronger race. If he can run that to that sort of level, and I think he's limited in this race, he'll be hard to beat.
It's going to be sensational betting. 10 races to bet in. Best bet, all available, of course, on hutchishonkers.com. But our early play will be in race 4.
Yeah, race 4. Like Ernest Feeling, I'm hoping to be on Setanta because I don't think the market will be really strong with him. But maybe it will late. But those are the two that make most appeal. And I'm looking forward to that last race. It's a hard one to sort of work out. But, we'll be playing in that. Which one will we be playing? It's hard to say.
Race 4, number 2, and race 9, number 2. That's what Setanta is. Shane, I know you're still doing the finishing touches to your form. Has anything jump off the page early? Give us a little early little look at something.
And Glory again. I know I tipped him last start and I thought he could win, but as soon as the track was the way it was, he had no hope. He's going to get he's going to 1,400 and he's got gate 12, so he might race a little bit closer. He's got 133 pounds, but geez, it's a weak race. It's a terrible race. You only got him and looking at this, Sparky Stars racing all right. He'll get back and run on. And outside of that, Courageous Knight ran all right the other day, but there's not much in it, Clint, that race. It's pretty
That's
weak.
race 7, number 1, Fun and Glory, Zach Purton.
Yeah, he'll be hard to beat. I would have thought Fun and Glory, like Shane said. But it's interesting. I mean, we do race on the C+3.
So what does that mean?
It's a rail out as far as it goes, and it can be a little bit more on pace. But then we've got to offset that a little bit. What the weather will do as well. So it's going to be a tricky one as far as any track patterns are concerned.
But by race 7, Richo, everyone should have worked it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mate, Shane, he just sighed as though it looks like a task too big for him. And I know that he's got bloody big shoes and he needs to just...
we're bringing it. We're going to bring the A game. Don't worry about that.
Yeah,
but I'd love to... I mean, at this time of year, unfortunately, with the weather, it can be difficult. If the track plays evenly, then we won't have too much to worry about.
We don't want excuses. On Hutchie's Honkers, we deliver. We don't have excuses.
Hey, our record says that.
Thank you. Exactly
yes,
right.
It does.
Okay, I've thrown that in the book, Shane. Race 7, number 1, Fun and Glory. Now, hutchishonkers.com is the site to jump on, and it is absolutely superb. Now, RS, next week is our last show for this season, and we're bringing in the big guns. Tell me about Casper Founds. What can we expect with our special guest next week?
If he tells some stories about me, I will tell some stories about him.
That's a given.
I think he'll shut his mouth.
Well, we want those stories. We can make sure that there's some PG versions.
Yeah, we need the PG versions, I think.
Is he's a interesting character, is C. Founds?
Yeah, well, back in the late 80s, he used to make the best telephone noise ever. And if anyone had a big telephone, they were bricks in those days like this or whatever, they were like that and that thick. He used to get in the lift or in an elevator or wherever, and he'd start making that same sound. And they'd get their phone and look, and they'd no answer. They'd put it down, and then about 20 seconds later, he'd do it again. Up they'd go, and they'd look, and they'd be he was so good at it. I don't know how many times we'd piss ourselves laughing with people, because remember, it used to be the same noise. Every phone was exactly the same, and he had it down to a T. Oh, it was hilarious.
It'll be great to chat with him, and he's outside of being very entertaining, a fantastic trainer as well. So hopefully we'll get a little bit of a chat about some of his horses as well.
Clint, he must have good runners next week, because he wouldn't be coming on if he didn't.
No, well, it might have been a little family influence. We might have thrown the arm up the back and say, we need you involved. So we'll actually ask if we can get an extended, like a dance mix of next week's show.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Because we need some more time to flesh things out with him, I would have thought. RS Dye, good punting on Sunday, mate. I'm barracking for you if that helps.
Thank you, mate. Good luck to you too.
We will have a lot of fun, and good luck, Hutchi, hutchishonkers.com.
Yep, looking forward to it. Should be a great weekend as well. So make sure you subscribe. And also with the show, like it,
spread it, share it
around,
send it around.
Yep.
Tell us what you think of Shane. He doesn't get on social media, and we'll pass on the good stuff.
And while we're there, actually, I'm going to want to introduce a new segment next week, and Shane might like this as well. I want to throw it out there to the people that are watching. If you've got some questions about Hong Kong racing, about Shane, about anything,
There you
really,
go.
send them in. We'll
Any
ask them,
question.
we'll answer them. Any question at all.
It's your mailbag, and we'll open it up, and we will ask the relevant panel member the question.
And I'm just going to give them a little bit of advice. If you throw one at Veandercross, it's going to be the same answer. So let's move on from that one. Try a new one. Please be original.
Personal experience would suggest he's 100% correct there. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you next week.